Okay. A bit windy today. But I still like the weather. At least it's not hot. Interesting topic today. Camera related. I've noticed that videos where I talk about cameras seem to be getting more interest than videos where I talk about life. So let's mix between both. Today we talk cameras. Today specifically I will talk about what I think Sony cameras are lacking. And because it was brought to my attention that I don't seem to be filming in very optimum locations with very optimum lighting. It's a one-man band basically. Just a camera, a tripod, a microphone, and that's basically it. So someone might assume that I don't really have the knowledge to be talking crap about camera manufacturers, but a brief history of me and Sony. So I owned the A6000, the A7 III, the A7 IV, the A7R4, the A7S III, the FX3. I have operated the FX6, the FX9, and the Burano, which I believe is almost every significant camera other than the A7S II, which I never owned, shot on, I never liked. Although it was like, it shifted Sony in the video spectrum with the low light capabilities and whatnot. But for me, up until the A7S III, up until Sony did or started doing 10-bit 422 in camera, all the S-Log2 stuff was questionable. So S-Log2 on the A7 III, S-Log2 on the A7R4, and S-Log2 on the A7S II, I was never a big fan of. The A7 III passed, was a little bit of like tweaking in the setting as a picture profile, but when you compare S-Log2 footage to S-Log3 footage, especially in the with the color profile, the sgamut.cine, it's a huge difference. Basically 10-bit from 8-bit, it's a huge difference, especially with the 422. The chroma subsampling, it really makes a difference. But funny enough, what I think is the weak point of Sony is what they have been trying to develop all this time. So Sony for pictures, generally I like. The cameras are very fast, very, very, very fast. The focusing is second to none. Sony focusing, I always say this, Sony focusing is by far the best. And I believe it will always be the best. I've tried the rest of the brands, no one compares. Even when the lens is fast, even when the conditions are optimum, Sony is fast and accurate when it comes to focusing. But Sony colors. Before they started with the 10-bit, the 8-bit, the color science wasn't, like, it was an older generation, which again, it started with the release of the A7S III. Before that, colors were Sony. Colors were digital. There were two digital. Yes, a lot of creators used the Sony cameras. A lot of content was shot on the Sony cameras. A lot of content is still being shot on the Sony cameras. But Sony has this look, this digital look, this Sony look. It has improved. I'm not gonna deny it. Sony colors has improved a lot. With the 10-bit, it's a lot nicer. You can easily grade and shift, and like you can make a lot out of it. But then there's the point. You need to know how to grade. You cannot just use Sony colors for what they are and expect them to look good. And one of the things that really did annoy me with the colors are the skin tones. Sony skin tones are warm, yellowish, orangey, whatever you want to call them. They're not very flattering. They're not very realistic. Again, you can always correct. Again, if you once you shoot log, you can always correct. You can always get stuff to look the way you want them to look. But it is not pleasing. I don't want to compare it directly to Blackmagic, but personally I really enjoy Blackmagic colors. I think that B-RAW, although I don't like it as a compression or as a file format, I believe it is lacking. This is a topic for a different day, but B-RAW is a lot less efficient than ProRes RAW or than R3D RAW. Yet the colors that come out of Blackmagic files are, once you just put them in DaVinci, they're good. They're pleasing, they're cinematic, they're beautiful, the tones are nice, the highlight roll-off is nice. It's just, it's where colors are supposed to be. I'm not going to compare it to red colors. I'm not going to compare it to airy colors. Again, let's just say it's a different price bracket. But what you pay for a Sony a7S III is not that far away from what you pay for Blackmagic 6K Pro. And the sensors, both cameras are full frame. It should be comparable, but the colors are night and day difference. And the ease of use of the files and coloring them and grading them in DaVinci Resolve is just, it's amazing. But again, I don't want this to become a Blackmagic video. I just want this to become why Sony isn't the best. So one of them is colors, basically. And second to that is the build quality. Sony cameras are plastic. Sony cameras are cheapishly made. Yes, the technology is beautiful. Yes, but the weather sealing, not very much. The build quality, it's just plastic. Again, all the swivelly screens, they're plastic. All the dials and everything you touch on a Sony camera, it's plastic. It's cheap. It's made for obsolescence, basically. And I felt the difference. Like the A1 has nicer quality. The A7Rs generally, they have better viewfinders. They have nicer quality, nicer build quality, and it's not that there's a different price bracket. It's just the bodies seem nicer. The S's and the 4, they're just ordinary. The 4 is by far the worst of the bunch, although it is like their best seller, I believe. And FX6 and FX9, they're still plasticky. They're good bodies. They're well weighted, but they're still plasticky. Sony doesn't really care about the build quality. They don't care how much the bodies last. And I don't even want to mention the shutter blade misalignment thing that keeps on happening. Like a lot of people have reported this with the A7 IV, that basically the shutter just dies. 30,000 clicks or 40,000 clicks and the shutter just dies. One of the blades just misaligns, and it's becoming a thing. So yes, the technology is beautiful. Yes, the cameras are fast, but then they don't last that long, and they should, because Sony doesn't push cameras that often. Like the gap between the A7S III and the A7 III and the A7 IV, I think it was like 5 years. more or less the gap between the A7 S2 and S3 was almost the same. We're expecting an A7 V. I think that's what they should release. I think I've heard a rumor that they're delaying it, but yes, it's within that time frame now. So if you expect people to use the cameras professionally, but then the cameras are cheapishly made, the cameras are plasticky, the cameras won't last, then there's no point. Either release cameras more frequently, or just make them better. And yet other manufacturers are making very good cameras. Blackmagic quality is trash, other than the Pixis, but the rest are just like plastic, like a plastic cup kind of camera. But Panasonic makes very good cameras. Nikon makes good cameras. Generally, they make good cameras in terms of build quality. One of my issues that I had with Fujifilm before, when I shot on the X system before the GFX, is that the cameras are also cheapishly made. They're very plasticky. They're toy cameras. They don't last as much. So back to why Sony is lacking. And the thing I think is like the main point is that they're not really improving. They're capitalizing. The sensor in the A7S III is the sensor in the FX3, is the sensor in the FX6. It is almost the same sensor in the in the Burano. And for me, the least camera that I enjoyed using in the whole Sony lineup was the Burano. You would think that it's a game changer. It's a cinema camera. It's an Alta Cine, and no. The footage was just like the FX6. It has the very nice image stabilization the FX6 does not have, but for 4 times the price, 5 times the price, it's not a lot of bang for buck basically. I think Sony is enjoying being in the lead, and I think they're enjoying it too much, and I think they'll be giving space for other manufacturers to gain. They might not be gaining in the focus department, but they will be gaining the hearts of other photographers and videographers, because what you see on that monitor, especially that the monitors are pretty crap on the Sonys, what you see on that monitor, you like. Just like what you see on the beautiful monitor of a Blackmagic camera, just what you see on the new Lumix cameras, the colors are what you want to see. So again, this is what I think of Sony. I'm not saying I don't use it. I'm not saying I don't own it. I am literally just saying what needs to be said. Sony, wake up. Yes, you can race all the way to the top, but to stay up, you have to keep on playing. You have to keep on giving us stuff. You have to keep on improving those colors. They're not where they're supposed to be. They're still not where they're supposed to be. So, yeah, if you guys have any opposing opinions, please share them. I would love to hear your comments, read your comments, and until next time, stay safe.